All right. Good afternoon. If you're on the west coast of the United States or further west than that, then I guess it's still maybe good morning to you. Um, Many of you know that over the past week and a half or so, I've been coming to you at 2 p.m. Eastern every day to talk about a certain topic. I have a theme for a week and then a topic for a day. Last week, I spent the week talking about emotional intelligence, digging into the different facets, understanding empathy, asking how can we know our clients or our customers or our patients better, asking how can we know ourselves better. This week, the theme has been about bringing humanity or being human in the face of technology. I've been having these conversations every weekday afternoon at 2 p.m. Eastern. I'll give you a little bit more background on that in just a minute, but just let me introduce myself really quickly. My name is Jeff Eccles. I'm the president and the chief strategy officer of Echo Engagement. I'm also the director of brand strategy for Entre Architect. What does any of that mean? It means that I am here to help professionals kick tire kickers to the curb, to get rid of people that are looking for order takers and find people that respect and want, crave expertise, and who are looking for and value trusted advisors. That's what I do on a day-to-day basis. In terms of Entre Architect and being director of brand strategy there, it means that I host something called Context and Clarity. Every weekday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern, I host a live stream inside the Entre Architect Community Facebook group called Context and Clarity Conversations. Every Thursday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern, my co-host, Catherine McPhail, and I host conversations with special guests. We call that Context and Clarity Live because we stream it out to Facebook, to LinkedIn, to YouTube, and to Twitch. It's also a podcast that comes out every morning, and it's a coffee talk that happens inside the Context and Clarity Club on the Clubhouse app. So what, Jeff? What does all that mean? Well, it means that I spend a lot of time exploring these ideas, talking to people, and digging deep on what matters most. What matters most to you? What matters most to your success? And digging into and finding clarity on these topics that we have every single day. There's a new topic. They all fall under the broad umbrella of the business of whatever you do. So that's a little bit of an introduction. Like I said, this week we're talking about humanity or being human in the face of technology. One of the reasons we're doing that is because our special guest that Catherine and I will talk to tomorrow is Brian Kramer. Brian Kramer is a best-selling author. He's a fantastic speaker. He's a TED speaker. He's a great keynote speaker. And Brian spends a lot of time talking about speaking human in a technology-driven world. So we're spending this week talking about being human in a technology-driven world. So the next thing that I would say is, first of all, I'm not an expert on any of these things. I am simply here to facilitate a conversation. So if you are an expert, if you have something to say, post it in the comments. If you have questions or concerns, if you're wondering about something or you have stories to share about the topic of the day, post it in the comments. Even if you're watching this on the replayed version, use the hashtag replay. Say, hey, I'm watching this on the replay. My question is, or my advice is this. Put it into the comments wherever you're seeing this, LinkedIn, YouTube, or Twitch right now. The other thing that I ask is, if you're watching this, whether live or on the replay, do what my friend Javier did just a minute ago and say, hey, I'm here. I'm listening. I'm watching the replay. Say hi. Let me know that you're here. Let me know where you are. Where in the world are you? I know Javier is in New Jersey. He's an architect in New Jersey. So thank you, Javier. Hi, thanks for joining this conversation. So say, hey, I'm here. Say, this is where I am. And then tell me what it is that you do. And let's have a conversation. let's have a conversation about the topic of the day. Like I said, we've been talking all week about humanity, being human in the face of technology. The specific topic for today is, with all of that technology that you have at your disposal. And so Barry Reed just checked in from Scotland. Hi, Barry. Thanks for joining us today. Barry says he's an expert, but he's not sure what he's an expert on. With all of the technology that you have at your disposal, and Barry and Javier are both architects. You may be an architect, you may be an engineer, you may be an accountant, an attorney, a doctor, a creative or a design professional, or real estate professional. I don't know. I don't know what you do, but with everything that you have at your disposal, right? It may be some automation software. It may simply be Zoom or FaceTime. It may, for my architect friends that are here, it may be a BIM software or a augmented or virtual reality program. It may be Slack. There's a lot of Slack in the news today because they're just rolling out a rebrand. Whatever it is that you do, you have a lot of technology at your disposal. So the question is, what are you doing with that technology that helps you connect deeper with your customers or your clients or your patients, whatever you call them? What are you using that technology for that helps those customers or clients or patients understand your work better, connect with you and your work better? That's what I'm interested in exploring deeper today. Javier says, I really love the ability that Zoom gives me as a full-time employee and business owner to meet with clients when I can. In our meetings, I can easily share a sketch, mark it up on the spot, screenshot it to send it to the client. I think that's a great example, especially in the midst of this last 12 months and now going even beyond that, especially in the midst of where we've been in this global pandemic and this separation, right? This distancing from each other. What a great tool Zoom has been for a lot of people. I mentioned earlier that every morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, I host this coffee talk on Clubhouse. If you're on the Clubhouse app, if you want to know more about that, just post something in the comments, send me a message wherever it is that you are. I'll tell you more about Clubhouse and how to get there. But every morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, I start these conversations on the topic of the day. Same topic, no matter whether you're listening to the podcast, the Context and Clarity podcast, or you're dropping into the coffee talk on Clubhouse, or you're part of this conversation at 2 p.m. Eastern, or it's part of the Context and Clarity live stream at 4 p.m. Same topic all day, every day. One of the things that came out time and time again in that conversation on Clubhouse this morning was, it doesn't matter what we're talking about. It could be Zoom. It could be some whiz-bang modeling software. It could be an automation tool, a CRM, whatever it is. The key is that all of these things are tools, right? Is AutoCAD, if you're an architect, or Revit, if you're not, if you're an architect, is that a $7,000 pencil, as someone called it earlier today? Or is it a tool that you can use to tell the story better, to help your clients or your customers or your patients understand your work and your service to them better? Deb, who was on Clubhouse this morning, is a friend of mine, lives right here in Indianapolis like I do. Deb mentioned the way that public meetings have evolved. She's a landscape architect. She does a lot of municipal work. So public meetings are a big deal in her world. Obviously, those kinds of things have changed over the last 12 months, but she talked about drones and Zoom and all of the ways that they have to, and they've learned to, and they've got better at using over the last 12 months to connect communities, people in communities, with their community, with their parks systems, which is really Deb's world there. She mentioned the fact that she's actually worked with a 12-year-old that will build ideas, that will build parks, that will build images inside Minecraft to help communicate with other kids about the parks in their neighborhoods and to get input from other kids in the community about parks and recreation centers and facilities in their neighborhood. That just blew my mind. Right? I love that. Who would have thought, right? I understand that most of my network, because one of the places that this is streaming to right now is LinkedIn. It's LinkedIn Live. So I understand that a lot of my network on LinkedIn are professional services people. There's a lot of architects in my network. There's a lot of engineers, a lot of contractors, a lot of attorneys, a lot of accountants and doctors, a lot of people in professional services, real estate agents, a lot of people in my network from professional services. Imagine a 12-year-old on Minecraft working with you to connect more deeply with your constituents, if we say it that way, right? Imagine that. Would you have ever thought about partnering with a 12-year-old to help other people, other key constituents, understand and connect with work more deeply, connect with reason, purpose more deeply? That just blew my mind today when Deb shared that. So that's really what, when I was thinking about this this topic for the day, when I was thinking about where does this conversation go today? Again, today's conversation is all about using technology to be more human. It's not really the way I posted the title, but it's about humanity in a technology world. So, it could be business system software, it could be whatever. But when I thought about that topic today, I never imagined, it's another reason to have these conversations. I never imagined the idea of partnering with a 12-year-old to use Minecraft to help other kids get involved in the public comment realm, to get into the public comment process. I never would have imagined that. But that's what came out of this conversation today. And that's the point of having these conversations. Excuse me. So again, I'm not coming to these conversations to claim to be the expert. I'm not even coming to these conversations to be the expert. I'm just coming to these conversations, whether it's the podcast or the Clubhouse conversation or this conversation or Context and Clarity here in a couple of hours. I'm just here to facilitate the conversation. I think it's important that we have these conversations. I think that we can learn a lot from each other by collaborating in these conversations. So bring whatever you've got to these conversations. Javier says, yesterday I met with a client and I shared with them colored sketches that I had for the project, and they asked how I did it. I told them I sketched it by hand. I scanned it. I photoshopped it to throw some color and some shadows. They were blown away and they realized, wow, there's a lot of work that goes into it. Having those tools is part of it, and then knowing how to use it to convey what you want. I think that's another great example. Because, again, they're tools. And I don't remember who said it this way. It might have been Deb again that said it this way earlier this morning in Clubhouse, in the Context and Clarity Club. I think it was Deb. She mentioned the term storytelling. She used the word storytelling. And to me, what Javier is talking about there, in the example that he's showing there, doing hand sketches. Again, Javier's an architect. Barry's an architect. They're both on the call right now or in this live stream right now. If you're watching this right now live, say hi. So first of all, say hi. Let us know that you're here. Let us know where you are. And then tell us what you do. Just put that in the comments, whether you're in LinkedIn or YouTube or Twitch, put that in the comments right now. But the example that Javier just shared as an architect, doing hand sketches, right? And then scanning it, throwing it into a program, putting some color and some shadows on it, which, that's knowing Javier and knowing Javier's background and where he comes from. I know that in a way that was a pretty simple thing, quick and easy, down and dirty, probably way for him to do that. But look at the client's reaction to that. Wow. wow, right? They were amazed by that. That's not necessarily what we're going for. We're not necessarily going for wowing the client, but what that tells us is that the story was getting across, right? What Javier was doing, again, pretty simple to Javier, sketching, some scanning, some what software tools, I guess, to put all of this together and show it to the client. And how much impact did that work, those simple things that are second nature to Javier, how much impact did that work, those tools have in helping the client understand and having an impact on that client and telling the story to that client? It had so much impact that they said, wow, how many times in the last couple of weeks have your customers or your clients or your patients said, wow? That's a question. It takes a little bit of introspection, right? That's what I'm talking about here today as part of this conversation. How can we take those things? And somebody in Clubhouse this morning also mentioned, hey, I use, it's going to come to me in a minute, what example that they were using, but it said, hey, it's not a new thing, but this is what we're using and it's impactful. Hand sketching has been around for millennia, right? Hand sketching is second nature to Javier. It's part of his training. It's part of his personality. It's part of who he is. It's part of his profession. It's not new, but it's the right tool in the right moment, right? Someone else mentioned this morning, even things like scheduling softwares. Calendly is one of my favorites. I've used Calendly for years. If you're not familiar with it, I don't get anything out of saying this. Calendly, Calendly. Google it. It's a scheduling software. It's one of my favorite tools. Why would a scheduling software be one of my favorite tools? Number one, because it's super clean, it's super simple, and it makes everybody's life better. Here's how. When someone reaches out to me, whether they're reaching out to say, hey, can we talk about your podcast? Or would you like to be a guest on our podcast? I love being guests on people's podcasts. Can we schedule something? Can we have a discovery meeting? Can we talk about what you do? Any of those types of things. Coaching calls. I use it for my coaching calls. I actually use it to set up all of my engagements. When there's a message going back and forth like that, we need to schedule something, right? Someone raises their hand, whether it's me or somebody else, somebody raises their hand, says, we need to schedule something. The first thing I do is I send them a message that says, listen, we can spend a lot of time going back and forth to get this scheduled, but would you consider clicking on this link, looking at my calendar, and finding the best day and time, the most convenient day and time for your schedule, and just scheduling it? Simple as that. Just click on it, pick the day and time, schedule it, we're done. It's super clean, it's super simple, it's super easy. It takes away the back and forth in messaging. It takes care of the issue of always scheduling the next conversation. Never leave that up to chance. Always schedule the next conversation before you hang up the phone or before the message is over. It takes care of that. And I'll tell you what, there has never, ever been anyone that has said, I hated that process. You seem like a robot by sending me this link. No one has ever said that. On the flip side, a number of people have said, wow, that was super cool. That was super easy. Thank you for making that so simple. Thank you for that process. Again, it's much more human because it makes their life easier. It makes my life easier as well. And I can build things into that too. Hey, what do I need to do to prepare for this conversation? Is a question I commonly ask. It's built right there into Calendly. So there's just another example of using technology to be more human. And I think part of that is, how do we use these technologies to make someone else's life, make someone else's business better? Right? How do we add value somehow by using this technology? How do we help them understand whatever it is that we do, whatever it is we're doing for them? How do we use it to communicate better? How do we tell the story better by using this technology. So those are three things, I guess, that came out of the Clubhouse conversation this morning. I know when I host Context and Clarity here in about an hour and a half, I guess it is a little over an hour and a half, there's going to be a lot more things that come out in that conversation. If you're an architect, let me just say that again, I know my network is primarily professional services people, architects, engineers, attorneys, doctors, contractors, real estate professionals, creative design professionals. If you are specifically an architect, I'd encourage you to go over to Facebook, find the Entre Architect Community Facebook group, join that group. There's no cost to it or anything. It is a closed group, 7,000 members, 7,000 architects around the world. If you're an architect, I'd encourage you to go to that group. And there are a lot of great conversations going on there, all driven by essentially by questions. Hey, I'm struggling with this. Hey, I have this question. Hey, check out this thing I just discovered or I just learned. Hey, what about this code thing? There's a lot of great questions going on, a lot of great conversations going on there. If you're an architect, I encourage you to go there so that you can take part in the Context and Clarity conversations 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. I'll be over there at 4 p.m. Eastern. On Thursdays, Catherine and I have a special guest and we go live. We're trying to break the internet, honestly, is what we're trying to do. We go live to the Facebook group, but also to LinkedIn, to YouTube, and to Twitch. And we have a special guest, like I said, every Thursday afternoon. We've had Seth Godin. We've had Mike Michalowicz. Tomorrow we have Brian Kramer. A week from tomorrow, we have Debbie Millman. A lot of great guests talking about some really great topics. And the whole purpose of bringing in the special guest every week is to take the topic, to take the theme of the week, to take the topic of the day, and to dig even deeper. So you can become part of those conversations. They're very engaged. David Charles. Hi, David. David says, in my role as a research center manager for architects, I take pleasure in contacting vendors whom feature samples in our library, especially in weekly mailings from our database, infusing some humor with a joke or giving a written reflection on something that makes that connection more than just transactional. I think that's a great example as well. Actually, next week, and so maybe this is a pitch for next Friday. Once a week, we do on Context and Clarity. We've been visiting digital and social platforms that you can use for your business. Next week, we're going to talk about email campaigns. This week, we're going to talk about social media as a general concept. What should you be posting? One of the reasons that we're doing that is that Brian Kramer, at his heart, even though he really spurred the human to human movement, so just search hashtag human to human, and you're going to find tons and tons of Brian Kramer stuff. But he's a marketing guy at heart. And so he speaks a lot on connecting on social media. So that's one of the reasons we'll continue that idea. The ideas that we talk with Brian tomorrow, we'll continue that Friday by talking about social media. But to David's point, we're going to talk about email campaigns a week from Friday as our mini series on digital and social platforms. So, and I love that, right? I'm guessing that most of you are like this as well, but I get lots and lots and lots of email newsletters. And frankly, I ignore about 99.9% of them. A lot of them I can't even remember signing up for them. I can't even remember why I signed up for them. I can't even remember who they're from. Some of that is not the fault of the person sending it, right? Some of that is just me. I signed up for a lead magnet or whatever, right? Some of that is because I just have not found the emails that engaging, to be honest about it. I mean, we've got to be honest. I just went through the process of burning down my own email list. Okay, I know I'm jumping ahead, a week ahead at this point. I just went through the process of burning down my own email list. I took down the sign-up form for my website, and I started sending messages to my email list that said, listen, If you want to continue hearing from me, respond to this message by Thursday. Otherwise, I am unsubscribing you from my list. I burned it down because number one, I don't want to be sending messages that people don't want to receive. Number two, I don't want to be paying for messages that people don't want to receive, right? So I sent out those messages to the different segments in my list. I staggered them out over 2 or 3 weeks, I think. And now I have greatly reduced, as you can imagine, I've greatly reduced my list down to just a few dozen people at this point, and we'll start building again from there and making sure that what I'm doing is sending out emails that are human, that are engaging. I love David's infusing some humor and doing something to make it not just transactional, right? There's going to be some transaction in there, but rising above that point. And one thing that I would say, back to Brian Kramer, who we'll have tomorrow, if you subscribe to Brian Kramer's email list, if you want to find out more about Brian Kramer, go to briankramer.com. So it's Bryan. So he's Brian with an A, Bryan, and Kramer with a K, Kramer. So briankramer.com. If you get on his email list, he writes his emails. He responds to those emails. So if he sends you an email, it lands in your inbox and you go, hey, Brian, what about this? He'll actually respond to it. So he's all about being human. So I think he's a shining example of using email. Maybe we should have flipped that and done emails this Friday instead of next, but that's okay. I'm going to wrap this up now because I've got to jump back onto another call here in just a minute. So just to remind you, my name is Jeff Eccles. If you're seeing this on LinkedIn, you know that already. If you're seeing this on YouTube, you might know that. If you're seeing this on Twitch, you have no idea who I am. But I'm the president and CSO of Echo Engagement. And I'm also the director of brand strategy for EntreArchitect. Again, you may not be an architect, and that's okay. One of the reasons I started hosting this particular LinkedIn Live, YouTube Live, Twitch Live at 2 p.m. Eastern started this last week. I'm just going to see where this goes. I'm going to see if this gains any traction. But I know that there are a lot of people in my network that are not architects. That's what the EntreArchitect stuff is for. That's what the context and clarity stuff is for. But I had a little bit of an epiphany getting ready for last week because last week's topic was emotional intelligence. And I said, this is not a topic that is just for architects. This is a topic that we all need. This is a topic that we all need to talk about because it's good for our businesses. It's good for our relationships. It's good for our lives. So I decided to try this out, 2 p.m. Eastern every day, just a short LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch live stream on the theme of the week and the topic of the week. Last week was emotional intelligence. This week is human in the face of technology, being human in a technology-driven world, and a different topic every day. So I'm going to continue to do this at least through the end of this week. We'll see what happens next week. Maybe I'll continue it next week. As I teased out earlier, Debbie Millman, who's the host of the longest running, one of the oldest podcasts in the world, the longest running design focused podcast in the world. She'll be our guest next week. And we're going to dig into courage before, oh man, just forgot what it was. Courage before confidence. And so all of our topics next week will be around the idea of imposter syndrome, of perfectionism, of fear. Every single topic next week will be around this idea of courage before confidence, because that's what we're going to talk with Debbie on next Thursday. And so we're going to talk next week about moving forward in the face of fear, moving forward and breaking out of perfectionism, moving forward and breaking through fear. So that's the topics for next week. Maybe I'll do this again at 2 p.m. Eastern for those that are outside of the architect community. And obviously, I appreciate David and Javier and Barry all showing up, my friends from the architecture community. You're all welcome in these conversations as well, but I want to make sure that we get these important conversations out to the entire professional services community. So if you're an architect and you've got an engineer or an attorney or an accountant friend, invite them. If you're somewhere outside of architecture, engineering, construction, law, accounting, a doctor, a real estate professional, creative or design professional, these conversations are for you. So show up. Show up at 2 p.m. I'm not an expert. I'm here to host the conversation, to facilitate the conversation. If you're an expert, show up. Share your expertise. Drive the conversation. If you have questions, you can drive the conversations even more because your questions allow us and empower us to dig deeper into the topic. So that's why I do this. That's why I am here. Again, context and clarity is where this begins. It's a podcast, short form, just a few minutes every morning. Context and Clarity Club on Clubhouse is where I host the coffee talk, 9 a.m. Eastern every morning. Context and Clarity Live, Context and Clarity Conversations are the live stream that happen at 4 p.m. Eastern every day, all on the same topic every day. It's the same topic that I'm talking about here at 2 p.m. Eastern. So I invite you, come to these conversations, contribute to these conversations, invite your friends to these conversations. And I think we'll all be better for it. I think we can be better in our lives, better in our relationships, and better in our businesses by having these conversations. So join me. Even if you're watching this on the replay, #replay. My name is I am here. I do this. Put that in the comments and let me know what your questions are. All right, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks.